and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Happy National Coming Out Day.
Well, the day we're taping, probably not the day you're seeing it.
It's coming up, October 11th. I'm Andy Humm, and this is Gay USA.
I'm Ann Northrop.
And in the news, well, I don't have to tell you, it was a bad week and a terrible time. But activists reacted strongly, obviously, to the Kavanaugh nomination, and we'll bring you some of that.
Actually, we're taping the day before National Coming Out Day, so maybe people will see it on National Coming Out Day. See, I'm so out of practice. I don't even know what day it is.
Welcome back, Ann.
Thank you, Corey Johnson, for filling in.
Winner of the Larry Kramer Activist Award at GMHC.
I thought Corey did a terrific job, as he always does, and we'll get to him later because he said something that we need to amplify.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Yes, Kavanaugh stuff. We're going to show you some of the mob.
Yes. We had a huge win in Romania this week.
And we had a court win in Hawaii.
The Queens, New York community, however, lost a gay icon under tragic circumstances.
In Uganda, very brave LGBT activists have plans to open a community center, much to the horror of the government.
PrEP, Truvada, as prevention, has failed for the first time in the United States in a particular case, but it is still an extremely rare occurrence for that to happen.
Yeah, 3 times out of 387,000, I think.
It's like 6 cases worldwide, but they're usually...
6? I only know of 3. You will be filling me in on the other 3. And we have a special guest today, legendary veteran Broadway producer Ted Snowden.
He's got a new show called Daniel's Husband, and you may know him from everything from producing The Elephant Man, Spring Awakening, Buyer and Seller with Michael Urie, and the latest revival of 3 Tall Women.
And a major philanthropist to the LGBT community as an out gay man himself.
And a great guy. And National Coming Out Day is October 11th.
Yes.
This is LGBT History Month.
Yes, it is.
There's a lot of LGBT history right here between us. October 17th is International Pronouns Day.
Really?
To promote using people's preferred pronouns. October 18th, and you should get ready for this, we're supposed to wear purple next week for Spirit Day.
Okay.
October 19th is LGBT Center Awareness Day.
God, and I thought I had a full calendar to begin with.
All right.
All right, well, I mean, I can hardly open my mouth to start with the news. It's just so horrendous what the lying, shameless, relentless Republican administration and their henchmen are doing to us.
Including that moderate, Susan Collins. Who gave a totally deluded speech. I watched it.
Lies.
We were all a little hopeful, and
Lies.
she just kept saying, oh, he's going to be fine on Obergefell and same-sex marriage. He's going to be fine on Roe v. Wade. He's going to be fine on all these things.
He's a centrist.
And, well, I loved it when she said, I found her, when the president attacked Dr. Ford, she said, I thought that was terrible, but you know, I also don't believe that she was raped by him.
Right.
You know, so
because she knows all and sees all, and is able to justify her sellout as
now
she
of course
must.
The president wants the women who accused Kavanaugh to face legal liability.
He says that about everybody.
I say bring it on, because that's going to put everything before a judge and a jury and a court, and we'll find out what happened.
She lied about about Kavanaugh's attitude about the Obergefell decision and the Masterpiece Cake Shop decision.
Right.
Lied about them.
Right.
Said that he supported the Obergefell decision, marriage equality settled. Yeah, wait till the next marriage case comes to the Supreme Court and see how he votes. And Masterpiece Cake Shop, she totally distorted that. quoted from the opinion, which is pro-LGBT, but
and she even
conveniently ignored the result.
She also said, well, Planned Parenthood, well, they automatically opposed O'Connor, Kennedy, Souter. And she had to apologize for that one.
Good, because they didn't.
Because it was an obvious lie.
Yeah, it got tracked down. So it's very discouraging, and now we have all the discouraging polls about the midterms, which are also upsetting.
Whoa. That's cable. Maybe I'm a Pollyanna. That is cable news. Let's keep the story going, because on the generic ballot, you also saw that Democrats are leading like 54-40 on that. Something like that.
Well, look, people say negative things to me. I say I'm waiting a month. I'm waiting to see how this turns out.
Right.
The Democratic turnout has been spectacular.
Yes, they are
Let's see.
Yes, they are saying Republican enthusiasm has returned.
Yes.
Fine. It's a very small party. I'm not interested in Democratic. I'm interested in what the majority does, and that includes independents who are not surveyed on these enthusiasm scales.
Well, let's put it this way. Please vote.
That was Chuck Schumer's message.
Well, it's everybody's message. It's Taylor Swift's message, and she's the most effective purveyor of that message.
She got 100,000 people registered to vote. 100,000.
Yes, repeat that, please. Please vote. And if you happen to be in New York State, the deadline to register is Friday, October 12th. So please make sure you're registered. And you may think you don't have much of a contest to vote on here, but there are congressional districts that need your vote, and there are
Senate
state
races.
Senate, yes. So please vote. Don't be like the bozos that cable news is showing us these days of young people who are saying, vote? What are you talking about? I'm too busy. Vote.
Well, you don't appreciate the fact that Judge Kavanaugh has appointed nothing but female clerks?
I do not. I looked at their bios. They're all very conservative. And there are plenty of right-wing women out there, 52% of the white ones who voted for Donald Trump. I'm not happy about any of that.
What you must remember is that this was a total Republican hit job. Yes, they got Joe Manchin to vote for Kavanaugh, but
only after they had
and Murkowski didn't. She just voted present to let the guy who was taking his kid down the aisle.
I am grateful to Lisa Murkowski.
Yes.
I think she did a good thing.
And Heidi Heitkamp.
And Heidi Heitkamp. I think they're both terrific on this. And
Heidi
I
said, "I have
votes.
to be able to look myself in the mirror." Or I think her husband said that about her, but it was said.
Well, she said it wasn't a political vote. It was a from the heart vote, and I believed her.
Right, and I think actually, she's supposedly behind in the polls, but I think it will help her.
I think so too. It certainly helped her raise some money.
Yes.
So onward. So in the midst of all this, sinking to another low point in his administration, Donald Trump and, of course, all the other guys have been talking about the mob rule. This is their new tactic. Describe the Democrats as dangerous, violent, and as nothing but mob rule.
Because
people.
They don't like people coming up into the hallways and confronting them about their bigotry.
They don't like a reporter confronting them. They don't like anybody confronting them. They are out to kill anybody who says no to them.
I was very moved by mostly women and some men who were in the Senate gallery while Mike Pence was presiding over this meeting and just screaming at them.
Yes,
because
exactly.
I've done that over the years in congressional meetings.
The Republicans in power do not understand democracy, do not understand freedom of assembly, do not understand freedom of speech, and have no interest in having an open society. They want. They're the ones who want mob rule. Right. They are the mob. They want to rule.
And when we say the mob, we mean organized crime.
Yes,
which is like the Trump crime family.
I don't want to go too far, but I suspect I would have more respect for the actual mafia than for these people. Be that as it may, I could live to regret that statement, so let me label it semi-facetious. But let's get to Donald Trump and the tweet he put out in the midst of this. The very rude elevator screamers are paid professionals only looking to make senators look bad. Don't fall for it. Also, look at all of the professionally made identical signs paid for by Soros and others. These are not signs made in the basement from love.
Well, first of all, that sounds like a rather anti-Semitic statement.
Well, of course, but let us show you the mob of professional sign makers making these professionally made signs. No, just the picture of, we'll get back to this. Just show us the picture of Lori in front of the White House. There, that is your professionally Soros-paid sign maker. Lori Arbiter, longtime activist in New York City.
Indefatigable activist.
All by herself, thinking up these slogans and making the signs all by herself.
Right.
So
what Trump doesn't like is that they're very effective messages.
Yeah, and that they are actually graphically appropriate. Lori Arbiter is an artist who used to be a contractor. She, in fact, painted my living room 25 years ago when I moved into my current apartment. Lori is a good friend to all of us and just a regular, normal human being who makes these signs. Now, she has distributed these signs widely so that, next slide, you can see them all over these demonstrations. People are holding up these signs, and they do look professionally made, but they are made by Lori Arbiter. They are not made by a Soros-backed mob of people,
right.
Scheming against the Trump administration.
Right.
So, yes, now we can go to the video of Lori making T-shirts with a couple of friends hanging around, one by one, making T-shirts with these slogans. Not a big professional organization, just Lori making a T-shirt. Thank you, Lori. She's
been going back and forth between New York and Washington constantly.
For weeks.
Yes, and in fact, shall we run the videotape of this?
Yes, we shall, but I just wanted to show and document Lori at a printing press making these, as opposed to what, and I'm surprised that none of these cable networks have had her on the air to explain to Trump what's really going on. So then, this week, another longtime activist friend of ours, Jackie Rudin.
Jackie Rudin had her 70th birthday, and there was a big party. Jackie's very active with Rise and Resist and Gays Against Guns.
Yep. And every other movement for the last
decades. She, too, is an indefatigable activist. So she said a few words. We're going to have a little bit about that. And then she introduces Lori at the party, who talks about what went down in Washington and how she feels about it now. Both of them talked about that.
Roll that.
I mean, there are people from all over my world, that don't know each other that are getting to meet here tonight. And that's a big thrill for me, because we're all community. And I guess what I was trying to say is I was going to separate you all out. There's no separation anymore. Nope. I mean, everybody in this whole room is going to be is in the streets or going to get out in the streets, immediately. And that's inspiring. And that's what's when I try to, get out of bed today after Kavanaugh. Today was somehow the worst day. Saturday we were all like dealing with it, and Sunday we were still dealing with it and trying to get whatever. And then today I woke up and I wanted to die. It was like the day. It was like the day after the election. It was like the day after Trump got in.
Yeah.
It was like that gut punch when well, but for the minute.
We are on the right side, Jack.
I got it, Reno. I totally got it. And thank God I hooked up with you when I did in 2009, 8, whatever that was, because you saved my life then with the Obama campaign. I mean, I know we're going to be okay. I know we're going to fight back. But, for a minute there, it just knocks the wind out of me. But then I see Lori, our beta back there. But I have to say, Lori, come here, please. Come here. Come here. Come here. Yes, you are.
Only everything is all of you.
Lori has been occupying D.C. and the Senate building and the Capitol building before anybody. She walked in there in this size human being with her T-shirts and her signs, which she prints herself. Which Trump tweeted about because he couldn't believe believe they were handmade in somebody's basement. They were all from Lori. They were her ideas, her expressions, her words, her signs. Gloria made the front page of every goddamn newspaper and magazine across the country this year. Her signs were what they looked for. And she's made us, she's given us the visibility we've been trying to get. Plus, she hasn't left the fucking steps of the Capitol in 3 months. So let's hear it for Lori. And everybody's gonna join her.
What are you doing here?
She's making new signs. Making new signs.
It was hard to come back, I have to say, and I drove out of there last night, and I didn't really know where to go. And I'm going to admit it, I pulled into the last rest stop, and I sat there for hours in the car because I didn't know whether to turn back or to come here. And it was a hard re-entry. I should have spoken to you this morning because I didn't expect what happened, and it was exactly, I go back to 2004 when I was in Broward, and no, 2004, no, I was in Broward doing election, I was protection, and that's when they actually stole the election again. So I just want to say there are people still in DC, of course. Good friend, I just got word. They're going to be at early in the mornings. And I'm even thinking, I just told my partner, I'm just ready to maybe stay here a little bit and then turn around and go back. They're going to meet him tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. They're going to go there and try to be there when he tries to pull up and get into that Supreme Court. We can't let up now. We can't let up. This is the real thing. But we are the real thing too. So I just wrote a post saying, our fury will match their power. Their corrupt power. They don't have power. They have fucking corrupt, stolen power. But our fury now, it's unleashed. We just have to stay furious and together. I love you.
The first step in taking back power is putting a check on Trump with taking back the House and even possibly the Senate, although it's a heavier lift. That is the first step. But you're seeing these articles come out now about, we got to look at the way the courts are structured. It's totally unbalanced. The Republicans stole a seat with Merrick Garland. They cut the court down to 8 members. Well, we could raise it to 12 when we get back power, although public officials are not wanting to embrace this idea because it's seen as radical. Well, it breaks norms. But it's something that can be done. And you can't just say to people, oh, we're lost for a generation and we're not going to have the protection of the courts. Well, you have the power to change the Judiciary Act, which was written by Oliver Ellsworth, Anne's ancestor, in the 1700s, which sets how judges are selected. They didn't select the number 9 for the Supreme Court. It's not in the Constitution. They can make any number they want. It was 6 under Washington. It went up to 7, 8, and then back. It became 9 in 1869, and they haven't changed it, but they can change it again. Congress, the president.
The best rationale I heard over the weekend was not about politics. It was about the Supreme Court has, gets thousands of cases submitted to it every year. It takes 80.
Yeah.
That is not enough. We need a bigger court so we can split it up, look at more cases, handle more things. And that, as a rationale for expanding the court, I think has perhaps more apolitical appeal. Not that anyone will be fooled, but I think that's real. I think we do need a bigger court for all
and when
of
I
that.
hear Democrats like Schumer and Pelosi saying, well, let's go back to the filibuster on Supreme Court so we can get more moderate people. Well, you're going to give the Republicans veto power over your selections when you get power? No.
All right. So speaking of mob rule, I read something interesting this week. The Oath Keepers are a right-wing militia group, and they are training to fight the left with guns. They are forming a national militia of all these like the people who were in Charlottesville.
To kill us?
To be prepared to defend the United States from the violent Democrats.
You mean defend Confederate statues?
Yeah, that too.
Well, of course, the Trump administration is making another assault on Obamacare. Once again, they're going to be taking healthcare.gov offline during the peak period for hours at a time, and they say it's maintenance, but it's a lot of nonsense.
This is the re-enrollment
Do we put the picture up of Jennifer Flynn Walker there?
This is for the current enrollment period.
Yes.
They're making healthcare.gov less available.
And also, the Republicans are not saying how they're going to protect pre-existing conditions. They're not saying how they're going to do that. And there's a court case from the Republicans working its way through the courts in Texas and other places to end coverage for things like that.
Let's spend a moment on Nikki Haley before she disappears. Everybody, the great Nikki Haley, isn't she wonderful? Well, you know where she was the night Brett Kavanaugh got elected or confirmed to the Supreme Court? She was at a party with the right-wing evangelicals who put his name forth in the first place, with all the Heritage Foundation people and all the...
That's the Republican base.
And Nikki Haley is hanging out with them, lest you think she is entirely moderate.
Well, don't forget, she was a creation of Sarah Palin.
Yes.
Sarah Palin stepped into the South Carolina primary and said, this is the real thing.
And you know that
not moderate.
Those on Trump's short list to replace her. First, you have Dina Powell, who everyone thinks is relatively moderate, but she's pretty hardline conservative. And then in second place on that list, Rick Grenell.
Oh my God.
Why is he in second?
He's a gay.
He's the gay ambassador to Germany, but why is he second on the list? Because he worked with John Bolton at the UN when John Bolton was the ambassador to the U.S. And he's very hardline
So don't be fooled by Trump saying I'm appointing a gay, which he'll make a big deal about if he appoints Grenell. Back to healthcare, the Justice Department just approved a $69 billion merger of CVS and Aetna Insurance, another blow to consumers. And the Senate this week is on the verge of confirming Eric Dryban, the nominee for Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. This is the guy who defended the North Carolina bathroom bill, who testified against civil rights legislation for people of color, and was an expert witness against the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act.
And the Education Department is going to step in and investigate whether there's a hostile environment at a elementary school in Georgia, because the parents of a 5-year-old girl are claiming that she was sexually assaulted by a gender-fluid other student. The school had already, and the state had already investigated and found that actually nothing happened. But the parents complained to Betsy DeVos, and now the Department of Education is going to launch an investigation about sex discrimination and this hostile environment, and whether the school had retaliated against the parents.
Well, what are they going to do about this horrible situation in Stafford County, Virginia, where it's a middle school, and they have a trans student, and they were doing one of those drills where you're the active shooter drills, right? So the boys went to the boys' locker room, the girls went to the girls' locker room. What are we going to do with the trans student? They left her in the hallway with the teacher. So the essential message of the drill is let her get shot, because we're not going to put her in a safe place. There's been a lot of complaints about this. They say they're going to look into it. The local LGBT group, which is called Stafford Equality, is last night went to the school board meeting. I don't have the results of that.
All right. Are we finished with the federal government for the moment?
I think so.
All right, let's go to Massachusetts. We showed you a couple of weeks ago a really hideous ad from an ad campaign by the right wing. There's a ballot measure up for a vote in November to repeal the law prohibiting discrimination on the basis of gender identity and expression, a gender law that protects trans people in Massachusetts. The right wing wants to repeal that law. They gathered enough signatures, you don't need many in Massachusetts, to get it on the ballot. So we showed you the really hideous scare tactic ad that the right wing is running.
It was a monster movie.
Well, the people supporting the law, trying to keep it in place, have now started their own online ad campaign, and we want to show you a couple of their ads. Let's start with the one with the young trans kid.
Yes, on 3.
Yeah.
Important.
Yeah.
As a former Salem police chief, safety is my top concern.
As an advocate for sexual assault survivors, it matters to me too.
That's why it's so important to vote yes on question 3.
Since state law began protecting transgender people from discrimination, there's been no increases in public safety incidents in places like restrooms.
Laws already exist to prevent assault and hold offenders accountable.
Dignity and respect. That's what this is about.
Join us. Vote yes on 3.
Vote yes on 3, and then the other one is about
Is the one
kid.
with the trans kid.
Love my kids, and I'd do anything to protect them. For me, that includes taking care of my transgender son, Ian. Just like other kids, he likes hanging out with friends. So I want him to be protected from discrimination in public places, like restaurants.
That's why I'm asking you to vote yes on question 3. It lets me live my life just like everyone else.
Vote yes on 3.
And protect Massachusetts kids like me.
Good.
So that they're using actual trans young people to talk about this. And the other one, of course, the first one was about reassuring the electorate that this law has not caused any assaults, and that if there were any in bathrooms, that the laws already exist to protect against that.
And I forgot to say that the International Human Rights Arts Festival has dumped Susan Collins from their as the sponsor of their festival that's coming up in New York in November. People saw her name with people like John Lewis and everybody else on this thing and said, "What the hell is she doing there?" And they said they agreed. And they totally condemned everything she said in her speech. She's gone.
She's going to find a lot of that in the next few months.
It's November starts.
Yeah, she's not going to be welcome in places like that.
Well.
All right. So that's what's going on in Massachusetts with those ads. In Chicago, a trans woman, Sierra Minaj Frazier,
Yes,
31 years
terrible.
old, stabbed dead in an abandoned building by a man she was with. They had an argument, and he just went after her with a knife, and that is the story of her murder.
And CNN reporter Caitlin Collins went after us with tweets. Now, you know,
When she was in college.
hold it. She's, first of all, college. She's 26 years old now.
Yeah.
All right. So in 2011, she did these anti-gay tweets. I don't know if I want a room with a lesbian. She called somebody a fag. Okay. All right. You say that's long in the past, 5 years ago.
And she's apologized and said no.
Yeah, yeah, she's apologized. But then...
I feel Andy is going to enlighten me about something.
But this woman, before she worked for CNN, she worked for what is it called? The Tucker Carlson Daily Caller website. That's where she worked.
Okay.
All right? And she did a long article about Barbara Mikulski mocking her short stature and her appearance, not bringing anything up about her being
I
in the
just
closet.
called her a lesbian in public.
Yes,
to
but
her face.
that's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But-
and I was angry at her for voting against marriage.
This does. I mean, you can't accuse CNN of liberal bias if they keep somebody like this.
No, I agree.
All right.
But thank you to the Racine, Wisconsin Common Council, which has adopted a gender identity and expression non-discrimination law.
Did you see how Homeland Security is protecting us from gay singers from Mexico? Well, this was pretty bad. I mean, the gay men's chorus of Mexico City showed up at the Houston airport, and they gave them a very hard time and they almost missed their engagement. And they were threatened with an international incident before they relented.
It was about whether they were professionals trying to travel on a tourist visa.
Something that could have been easily verified, but they gave them a very hard time about it. And also, what triggered
their flight, they made their concert.
What triggered the thing was that one of them was named Jorge Gutierrez, and that happened to be the name of somebody somewhere in the world who stole a car. And this started the whole incident. They go after Mexicans, they go after gays.
Yes, they do. They do.
That's all.
Okay.
All right.
I'm more upset by the incident in California where two Republicans running against each other for Congress, and they had one of those primaries where everybody's in the primary and the top two vote getters run against each other. So in this district, it ended up with two Republicans on top running against each other. So one of them is conservative and one of them is a maniac. And the maniac is Tim Donnelly, who is gay, but a nutcase. And he stole a photo of a trans Navy woman from 30 years ago.
Not 5 years ago.
No, 30 years ago.
30 years ago.
And put it up on a billboard that said that his opponent voted to allow our military funds to be used for sex change surgeries. 30 years ago, no care from the VA, no payment for any surgeries, no nothing. But this guy puts up a billboard, and he's gay.
That's not very nice, but
No.
we know we have anti-trans people within our community.
No permission from the photographer, no
Fellas,
permission.
we need to work on that.
From Out Magazine, which had published it
And
some
women.
time ago. That's the 8th District of California.
Well, on the other hand, in Greenwich Village, the contest is between two lesbians for the state assembly. Now, Deborah Glick was the first out lesbian elected to anything in New York, in 1990 or 91. But the thing is, Cynthia Nixon's on the ballot on the Working Families line for assembly. They had to do that because she was running for governor and they needed to get her off the line and put her Andrew Cuomo on the line.
In this stupid state, you can't just take
Drop
someone off the ballot. You have to move them to another race. And
so Cynthia says, I'm supporting Deborah Glick for assembly. She definitely doesn't want to go to what Deborah Glick calls Albania to
well,
work.
she did as governor, but not as
well, you can stay in New
member of
York
the
a lot for that.
Assembly.
All right. In Florida, a lot has come out about the Republican gubernatorial candidate Ron DeSantis' 2011 book. He said it's unfair to say the founding fathers, to blame them for slavery. He said, idiotically, the 3/5 clause benefited the anti-slavery states because they only counted the slaves as 3/5. You idiots. It was all about supporting the South, who didn't want to count black people at all.
Oh, my God.
And he railed against Obama's support at the UN for trying to eradicate violence against women. He said Obama was showcasing his Muslim roots. All right. Better news from Hawaii, where the Supreme Court there affirmed the ruling that same-sex spouses must be treated as presumed parents born during a marriage. With equal rights, responsibilities, and child support. Lambda represented the biological mother. The non-biological mother didn't want to pay child support.
It's an old story. It happens a lot.
Well, it's outrageous. You know, we work for these rights and then we don't want to take the responsibilities.
Well,
we'll see how what the Supreme Court thinks about this with Mr. Kavanaugh.
Individuals try to run out on responsibilities like that. And in California, Governor Jerry Brown, who's the most pro-LGBT governor probably anywhere in history.
Yes.
Thank you. I got a yes. Vetoed some LGBT bills passed by the legislature on mandatory teacher training.
We talked about that one last week, and the fact is that that one, well, I've done a deep analysis on it. He something about flexibility with schools and local options. And
well,
I don't know.
his real reason was it would cost too much. And what he said is schools are already doing it, and they have the right to do it. the bill would have made it mandatory. So in effect, the schools that don't want to do it don't have to do it now. So this bill would have made it mandatory for all schools. So his vetoing it is
maybe
a little
Governor Gavin Newsom will help with that.
But what Brown did do was he signed 12 pro-LGBT bills, including one that mandates training for police officers, which is a good thing on LGBT issues, and gives money to homeless LGBT youth. So all of that is good.
These issues should be resolved. The latest Harris poll says that 70% of people support federal LGBT rights law, 80% believe businesses should not be able to discriminate, and 75% believe that public accommodation should be open to everybody. You can't refuse people from service.
Well, that's what they say on polls, and then they vote for these idiot Republicans who are out to get us.
Well, and on another positive note, Tupelo, Mississippi, Elvis's hometown, had their first Pride Walk on Saturday.
Nice. We mourn the death of Ms. Colombia, Oswaldo Gomez, who was found a character in the community. There. Yes, if you look through photos of Ms. Colombia online, you'll see quite an array.
Ms. Colombia rarely spoke, although I would cover him at Pride marches and that's the St. Patrick's Day thing that he came to.
An icon in Queens, Mermaid Parade he always showed up at. 64 years old, found dead in the water off Reese Park in Queens.
Mysterious circumstances.
Yes, unknown causes.
They had a big rally out in Jackson Heights because he was so beloved.
Yeah.
Also in New York, Mayor Bill de Blasio did sign that bill that Corey Johnson produced, allowing you to choose between M, F, or X, non-binary, on your birth certificate if you want to change it. It means you don't need a doctor's note to do it.
I'm thinking, I have this wild idea that it would be kind of cool to have an X gender marker.
You go right ahead.
Minnesota is going to allow an X gender marker on driver's licenses.
The mayor said New York City sees you, transgender and non-binary neighbors, and we have your back. Of course, it would be nice if you got the police department off the backs of trans people walking down the street.
And
which
apologize
you haven't done yet.
To the LGBT community for decades of harassment. Congratulations to Richard Burns, the longtime executive director of the New York City LGBT Community Center, who is now taking over as interim CEO at Lambda Legal Defense.
Congratulations, he's stepping into a snake pit. I mean, they had some turmoil there.
But Richard's a good guy.
He is a good guy.
And he'll bring some peace there, I think. He has been an interim executive director at several organizations and has worked at foundations, and he was on the Lambda board for years.
I have a friend and ex-partner, Jim Metulsky, who was an MCC minister, and he was in San Francisco for many, many years. But his job now is to go to congregations, Christian liberal congregations around the country, when they're in trouble, and just be there for a couple of years to get them to talk to each other.
Richard's doing something like that. Congratulations to the late Edie Windsor, who is now the namesake of a street, or the street is her namesake, in Philadelphia, her hometown. Edie Windsor Way on South 13th Street at Locust.
We have a picture of her wife, Judith Kaysen Windsor, who was there with some kids, and they had a wonderful time there celebrating Edie Windsor.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, I don't know if you have any other national or local news.
I'm looking. Go ahead. I think not.
Well,
yes.
I did watch last week's show, and I did think Corey was terrific. And what I really appreciated was that he endorsed Reclaim Pride's plan for a big human rights march for Stonewall 50 next year.
Yes.
And he talked about how he's fed up with the corporate nature of the current Pride parade.
You can join Reclaim Pride as well, and you can endorse what we're doing in Reclaim Pride to make it a civil rights march as opposed to a corporate parade.
Yes, you can either go to the Reclaim Pride NYC Facebook page or go to reclaimpridenyc.org.
Please do that.
Sign on as a supporter. And if you're interested in coming to our meetings, they've changed. We used to meet on Saturday afternoons. We're now going to start meeting Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. at a new place called the People's Forum, which has been created as a meeting space for community organizations at 320 West 37th Street. That's Wednesdays at 7 p.m. at the People's Forum, Reclaim Pride.
But do go online. Your group can endorse this, and you know.
You as an individual can endorse it.
And the other thing we're talking about is, hey, Stonewall 50 is for everybody around the world. We want this to be like the Women's March. We want every city around the world to do a march on that day, because we have a lot to march and fight for. We got some things to celebrate over the 50 years, but we have a long way to go.
Well, then let's move on to international news and talk about that.
I just wanted to congratulate Jim Obergefell. He was inducted into the Ohio Civil Rights Hall of Fame. International news, we had a huge win in Romania, home of my people. Even though 3 million people signed a petition to get this on the ballot to ban same-sex marriage, it required 30% of the people to go. That's the poster that that was out there.
Yes, the top is a heterosexual couple saying yes, da. And the bottom is 3 Tom of Finland types arm in arm saying no, new. That was an advertisement by the right-wingers.
Well, but they lost. And the way that they lost is our side took a chance and said, if they need 30% of the people to show up at the polls, the best way to beat this is don't go to the polls. And so even though polling for this was 90% approval in this country with Romanian,
and even
Orthodox.
though Kim Davis showed up to lobby for the referendum.
Well, but the big thing here is that now the government, because they've been ordered essentially by the Constitutional Court to give equal rights, has already prepared a civil partnership bill to be passed now.
Well, especially because this referendum going down with only a few people voting for it shows them that there is more support in the country for this than they might have suspected.
And then you have Tokyo taking action. The metropolitan government there passed an LGBT rights law, and this is in anticipation of the Olympics in 2020.
Well, and that's because of Queer Nation. Because in 2014, when the Winter Olympics were in Sochi, and Queer Nation and others got all up in arms about the fact that they were holding the Olympics in an anti-gay country, Russia, and made a huge international stink about it. The International Olympic Committee passed a rule that said that any future country holding the Olympics had to have non-discrimination rules in place. And as a result, Tokyo, which is holding the 2020 Summer Olympics, has adopted a non-discrimination law for sexual orientation and gender identity and
Human Rights Watch also worked with them on crafting this, and the Japanese government is now moving towards doing this as well, Tokyo leading the way. Other cities in Japan
and they're going to do
have
education on these issues, too. We must hurry along.
Okay.
The United Kingdom is opening civil partnerships to straight couples as a result of a Supreme Court mandate. We've asked for equal access to civil partnerships for gay and straight couples, and they're going to do it.
But there was a ruling from the UK High Court that a baker did not have to write support same-sex marriage on a cake. And a lot of the gay groups are condemning this as discrimination. Peter Tatchell, our gay activist friend, said, no, that's freedom of expression. You can't compel them to write a message. It's different from selling a wedding cake.
Watch out for the right-wing presidential candidate in Brazil. He wants to whip and kill gay people to
he would whip his son if he found out he was gay, to whip it out of him.
He wants to add 10 people to their Supreme Court, to the current 11.
Glenn Greenwald, gay reporter, said he's the most misogynistic, hateful elected official in the Democratic world. But he got 46% of the vote.
They have a runoff October 28th.
There's still a chance to knock him off.
In the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights...
He didn't spend any money, by the way.
We have to move along.
All right, but go ahead.
Held a meeting privately with Chile and said, get on the ball about marriage. You promised to do this. We ruled you have to do it. Do it.
Australia is trying to let religious groups discriminate.
And LGBT activists in Uganda are planning to build a community center. The government is threatening to arrest them all if they do.
Latvia, for the first time, elected 2 out gay politicians in their elections.
In Taiwan in November, they will hold 2 referenda on marriage, one pro, one anti. If the anti one wins, that will end up in more court cases because their high court has already ruled that you have to equalize
You're
rights.
rushing me. Did you talk about Uganda?
Yes.
Yes. And what about Taiwan?
Yes.
Okay. We're rushed.
And a teacher in China is suing because he says he was discriminated against.
In AIDS news, we do have this failure of PrEP for the first time in the United States. It was a drug-resistant strain in San Francisco. As I said, there's only been about 6 cases. You said there are fewer, but, you know.
The only ones I know are this one in San Francisco, one in Toronto, and one in Amsterdam. 356,700 people are now on Truvada's PrEP around the world. 3 cases of PrEP adherent people getting HIV, probably drug-resistant strains.
And if you need drugs in Venezuela, you're fleeing the country these days.
Congratulations to Greg Gonzalez, a longtime ACT UP member who is now at Yale doing epidemiology. He just won a MacArthur grant.
Okay.
And in China, 100,000 new cases of HIV in the last year.
In entertainment news, it was a horrible week, but healing for me was going to Michael Musto's Duet 4. There he is with Flotilla DeBarge. It was a wonderful show, wonderful evening. Michael can sing. He's not just funny. So that was a great show at Club Cumming, and thank you, Michael, for that. And I also saw Bill Irwin in a show called On Beckett at Irish Rep. Beautiful show, a meditation on Beckett's language. This is the Tony Award-winning actor, and it's a 90-minute show. And if he can get down to Irish Rep, he also shows off his skills as a clown. I also saw something called Popcorn Falls, which I went to see because it was directed by Christian Borle. Adam Heller and Tom Surata do a lot of work, but it's not funny.
Congratulations to B.D. Wong, who married his partner of 8 years, Richard Schnorr, who's the director of digital media at the New York Public Library. And I saw the movie Lizzie, which has Chloe Sevigny as Lizzie Borden, killing her parents, in part because they were being mean to her girlfriend, the maid, Kristen Stewart. I found it wildly romantic.
Yes.
The friend I went with found it too brutal, but
good for the gays, bad for the gays.
I thought it was good. I thought it was great. Whatever. New Fest opens in New York October 24th to 30th, including Rafiki, the Kenyan lesbian film, and Boy Erased, the Nicole Kidman conversion therapy film. And get to the Leslie Lohman Museum, where through March 17th, brave, beautiful Outlaws, the photographs of Donna Gottschalk. Sorry. There's a self-portrait of hers. Wonderful, wonderful exhibition. Donna Gottschalk.
Down there in Tribeca.
And let's get to our guest.
And we are so pleased to finally have on our show Ted Snowden, who is a veteran theater producer, multiple Tony Award winner, and an accomplished philanthropist as well. But you are welcome, Ted.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
I know you don't have many,
but you are here to talk about your new show, Daniel's Husband, which is going to have a new run at the Westside Theatre at 407 West 43rd Street starting October 18th and running through February. This is a show that's sort of about the fight about same-sex marriage, but not with the right wing.
No. It's between two characters in the play, Daniel and Mitchell, and without giving too much away, it's they are not married yet when the play begins, and they are one wants to do it much more than the other character, and it sort of breezes along as almost like a kind of a gay play that we've all seen before, so we might think, and then something major happens halfway through that moves the play in many directions. It does not even really focus that much on gay issues by the time it's over.
We have a picture of most of the cast there.
Oh, yes.
There's, why don't you go through it? We've got
Ryan Spahn as Daniel. We have Lou Liberatori, who I've started working with 28 years ago. He plays Barry. We have Leland Wheeler as the young man Tripp, and
who goes out with the Lou Liberatori character.
Yeah.
Right?
And on the far right, we have Matthew Montalongo, who plays Mitchell.
Right.
And it's
Anna
Mitchell
Holbrook,
and Daniel are the couple.
And Anna Holbrook plays...
She plays
the
Daniel's mother, who's coming for a visit.
Okay.
Well, it sounds quite provocative.
It gets quite provocative, although it starts out in a very friendly, user-friendly way. There are twists and turns that people don't see coming. It's very moving. I don't know if you saw it.
No, I hadn't seen it yet. I'm going to see it in October.
Lucky you.
This month,
okay,
yeah.
good. We're playing at least through February and hopefully well beyond. And we are very thrilled to be at what I would call the premier off-Broadway theater, the Westside. It is the perfect intimate house for this love story, this kind of twist. It looks at the post LGBT marriage, same-sex marriage issue. It looks at things as they are now that we have it. What do we do with it?
Now that we have it, and of course you're also very involved with supporting a lot of gay causes through your foundation, how worried are you about these things being taken away at this point?
Well, the skeptic in me is is very concerned. I mean, we can all rush through some really dramatic or melodramatic fantasies about what might happen with the courts, with issues coming up. I mean, I think New York State will be a very safe place for us to be in, but I'm concerned. I actually only got married myself to my wonderful husband Duffy
2015.
2015.
Yes.
And only 2 weeks before the Supreme Court gave its blessing to federal gay marriage, and therefore it means a great deal to us. Actually, one of the groups I've supported over the years, Freedom to Marry, which was run by Evan Wolfson. Evan was the officiant at our wedding, our great friend, and all that. And I'm now working with the number 2 man there, Mark Sullivan, who works for me as a consultant on political things that I'm doing, in addition to all the not-for-profit stuff. So I see Daniel's husband and the plays and things I pick and do as a kind of an extension of also my concerns. I know I'm not alone in these concerns. And I just hope and pray that people want to come see something. I think they're going to want to come see Daniel because I think people genuinely want to be moved and want to feel something. You'll be entertained as well, but it's not just mindless entertainment at all. There are things, I think people want to feel something.
Yes.
I mean, they do. I know I do. We all love to be entertained, but it's getting a little hard to laugh right now.
A lot.
In the climate.
Yes.
we're in.
Although, you once did The Little Dog Laughed, which gave us a lot of laughs with Julie White and others.
While talking about how gay rights, a man's gayness could be stripped from him, in order to get a movie made in Hollywood. No offense, Hollywood.
I mean, people should know some of your other credentials. You were involved with the revival of Three Tall Women just recently, Spring Awakening, Masterclass, Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, but also a lot of gay shows early on. Buyer and Seller with Michael Urie, which ran forever. It
ran a year, a little over, about 14 months here in New York.
That's a lot.
But it had instantly a national tour, which was very successful.
Cheap to produce.
London. It was cheaper than Daniel's Husband and many other plays, but the main thing is it proved to me that off-Broadway is still a viable place to have a show if the press comes along and blesses you, and if the play itself is worthy and the public wants to see it. Word of mouth, of course, kicks in, but we do need that help at the beginning to get these things going.
And that was by Jonathan Tolins?
By John Tolins, that was the fourth play of his I had gotten behind.
Well, you did Twilight of the Golds with him on Broadway, and then last Sunday in June.
That was mine. I was the main producer on that.
Which is about a bunch of gay men while a pride parade is taking place outside, right? I remember it, yeah.
And while a relationship disintegrates, well, in a little tiny apartment nobody can escape. And and it's that was a great play. John writes very timely things of their time. And then I did a beautiful one called Secrets of the Trade that he wrote. He's a great writer, and I'm glad he finally got this approval and success that he got from buyer and seller.
Now, you clearly, as we've gone through all these credits, have been doing this for decades, and
yes.
I'm just interested in your observations about how things have changed, specifically around LGBT themes in the theater.
Well, of course, we used to be outliers. We were outlaws in a kind of sense, and so the theater we did was thrilling and exciting in the late 60s, the plays that came along. We just had the revival, which I was not part of, but it was beautiful, the boys in the band, and it reminded us where we were 50 years ago. Yeah. And I remember that when that was on, I was actually in college and coming to New York to see plays on weekends, and I was actually closeted enough to be afraid to go see it myself, or I'd have to lie to my parents about what play did you see last night.
I had to sneak into the movie.
I did the movie with a little more openly 3 years later, but that's where I was then, and I was not out. And when we did come out in those days, it usually meant having furtive liaisons with strangers in the dark for many of us. I mean, it was just a whole different world. And the plays that were coming out about us then, or that we were writing for ourselves, I'm connected very much with Terrence McNally and a lot of his works, and boy, there was someone, really pushing that envelope in the 60s, even before Boys in the Band. So I'm just thinking where it goes. That's a very heavy question. We could talk about that one for
days,
hours and hours.
But do you see a different, I don't know, to be cliched, an openness from the community, the audience, the straight production world, if there is one on Broadway?
I do. The risk of assimilation is that audiences can get used to, it might have lost a certain sense of its adventure, and it's talking about our issues. I think Daniel takes another twist, therefore it's valid as something different. But maybe one doesn't want people to get completely used to what was once bold and daring and shocking. You want them to still feel invigorated. But mostly what I feel now when I go to films and plays is, oh, dear Lord, please let me be moved. Let me feel something that I can't really always feel from TV or the little box. I want things that are bigger than life. That's why my love for the opera, I suppose, or the things that are live.
Speaking of which, you have another show opening this week called My Parsifal Conductor.
I do
about
indeed.
Wagner and Cosima and King Ludwig of Bavaria.
King Ludwig's on stage.
That's going to be at the Westside YMCA.
Yes, it is. Well, it's a beautiful theater there called the Marjorie Dean. And it's a beautiful place and kind of perfect for our play. It actually is almost like a mini Bayreuth theater, the one Wagner built himself.
We're out of time, but we'll have more about Daniel's husband in a couple of weeks. Thank you very much,
Come
Ted.
back.
Well, here anyway.
Okay.
I didn't
and you
know.
come back next week. Bye.